What is up, TFA fam? I hope you are all doing well. I hope your families are well. I hope everything is going good in your lives. Before we jump into today's podcast, please be sure to rate, review, subscribe. Whatever you're watching on, whatever you're listening to, really means a lot to us. Just as draft season is creeping up on us, and we're about to get hit directly in the face, especially with all this information, with how the water hose has been kinked. And all of a sudden, someone just made it straight, and that water just going to come blasting out and just showering us with the fantasy goodness. So please be sure to subscribe and do all that for us. Leave a comment, rate, review, tell a friend. Let someone else know. Say, hey, you know what? I found this really fantastic, just superb fantasy football podcast that you just have to know about. Do that for us. It would mean a lot. So today we're going to be talking about running back sleepers. Obviously, running backs are the hotness this year, whether it's zero RB, heavy RB, modified running back, anchor running back. You're going to see all these terms thrown around as you're doing your fantasy football research this year. So we're just going to jump right into it. We're going to hit you guys with some deep sleepers, no matter what your strategy is going to be. These guys should be on your radar and for your later round picks. So, Kev, why don't you kick us off here again and tell us about your running back sleepers?
Yeah, I felt like I could have cherry picked a little bit and took in some guys like Alexander Madison, Tony Pollard, Chase Edmonds, those kind of handcuff backs, the guys that you want a pairing with some of your late round guys or some of your early round picks. But I felt like that was completely cherry picking, and that's not really serving anybody any purpose because everybody already knows about those guys. Those guys are certainly the top handcuff backs. If anything happens to Zeke, Kenyon Drake, those guys, or Dalvin Cook, then those guys instantly become lottery tickets. So obviously, those guys are going a little bit earlier, the 10th, 11th round, somewhere in that range, and rightfully so, because if anything were to happen to them, now the difference between those guys and some of the guys I'm going to be talking about, where they may not have much of a role. Alexander Madison's a little bit different. I do think that he's still going to have a role in the offense. It's not going to be significant, but I think you could probably 10 touches per game probably is about fair. They are still on offense that wants to run the ball a ton. But for that sake, I didn't really want to talk about them. So I'm going to start off with my first one is Latavius Murray. He's not typically a guy that I like to shoot for, but he is going in the 10th round, and he is going to have a role in this offense. We've seen that Sean Payton's willingness to really utilize two running backs. Alvin Kamara was hurt last year and banged up. So Latavius Murray last year still didn't have a huge workload. He handled 40% of the snaps, 39% of the opportunities. He averaged about 11 touches, almost 12 touches per game. He had 29 red zone touches. He only had 2 goal line carries, but he had almost 900 yards. He had 637 rushing yards, 235 receiving yards on 34 receptions and 6 touchdowns. So, to be honest with you, there's a little bit to like here with Latavius Murray. One, we know if Alvin Kamara goes down that this dude is going to get the majority of the touches out of this backfield, and he is a capable pass catcher. He's somebody that kind of every year is kind of always a little bit slept on, even when you go back to his days with the Raiders. Like, he's just never been somebody that anybody's super excited about, even though he is a hell of an athlete in his own right at his size. But I think there is still lots of like here if you can get him in the 10th round. He's somebody that even in a pinch on a weekly flex or something like that, somebody, depending on if they have a great, depending on matchup, I think he is somebody that you can utilize once we start getting the bye weeks and everything else, that which maybe you're looking for a flex week option. Latavius Murray's that guy. If anything happens to Kamara, obviously wheels up. But we've also seen back in the days when Mark Ingram was there that they do like to split the touches, and I do think that you can see that a little bit more, especially with Kamara being injured last year. I think maybe they want to kind of throttle his touches a little bit because of the fact they do not want to get him hurt and limited like it was last year. He just clearly wasn't the same guy. So moving on, for me, these other two guys are much later down in terms of where they're going. Latavius Murray's RB41 going at 10:07. The other two for me are Justin Jackson and DeAndre Washington. DeAndre Washington's going at RB67 or the 20th round, which is undrafted. Most people aren't drafting 20th going that late. And then Justin Jackson's going RB54, 1608. So I'm going to start off with DeAndre Washington. Obviously, he is the handcuff, or he is the backup to Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I do think that I tried to go back and look at what happened with Kareem Hunt, back whenever he was his rookie season, and he still handled a lot of the snaps. He played about 65% of the snaps in his rookie season, and I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire could come in somewhere in that range. He's been getting rave reviews over this offseason. Damian Williams opted out. I know Darrell Williams has been getting some run with the ones. I do think Darrell Williams does get some opportunity, but I think DeAndre Washington, we've seen he is a capable pass catcher as well. He had 40 targets last year with the Raiders, and I mean he was money last year and probably won some people a little bit of fantasy championships. I mean, he had 21.6 against Tennessee, which I believe was week 14. In week 16, he had 18.6 against the Chargers. He finished last year with 387 rushing yards, 292 receiving yards, 3 touchdowns, 40 targets, and 108 carries. He averaged about 7.6 fantasy points per game throughout the entire season. He's kind of like a Damian Williams type of running back, right? Like he's that Andy Reid guy that he also has rapport with Patrick Mahomes. He also went to Texas Tech, so they have some connection there as well. So I like DeAndre Washington's late round guy. I don't know why he's not going higher. I know Clyde Edwards-Helaire is expected to get the lion's share of this offense, and I think he probably does. I think he probably comes in at 55 at least. Bare minimum 55, probably fit in that 55 to 65% range in terms of opportunities. But I do think DeAndre Washington can carve himself out a role, especially in this high explosive offense with somebody that could find himself getting some touchdowns. So I like DeAndre Washington going at RB 67. The other one for me is Justin Jackson. And the more and more I've really dug into Justin Jackson, like Justin Jackson hasn't had a ton of opportunities, but he's always been efficient in the opportunities that he's had. If you go back to, if you look at him too, and he's an explosive athlete, 72nd percentile 40 with a 4.52, 85th percentile burst, and 96th percentile agility. He's never really had many opportunities, but when he's been given opportunities, he has produced. 2018, he had double-digit fantasy points in 3 of his final 4 games, while Melvin Gordon was out, and he split time with Austin Eckler. We also have 17 touches per game vacated by Melvin Gordon heading to Denver, and I think it's reasonable to expect that he's probably going to get 10 to 15 touches per game here in this offense. People say, whoa, that's quite a bit. Here's the thing, like I think this offense wants to be a run-first offense. I really do. I think they have the defense for it. I know they have all the weapons, but with Tyrod, that's just not a great situation. Because I don't really believe in Tyrod Taylor, the quarterback. Like I think he is a sufficient bare minimum game-managing quarterback. And I think that they're going to try to run the ball as much as they can. And I think that they're going to be splitting time. Now, a lot of people have been really high on Joshua Kelley. But while I was kind of looking this up and I was kind of trying to find, some nuggets on this, Anthony Lynn, a couple of weeks ago, talked about this situation. And it was not good news for Joshua Kelley. He mentioned Justin Jackson as being potentially the key to the backfield in 2020, which was like, okay, that blows your hair back a little bit, right? Because we're all expecting for Austin Eckler hype season, and by saying that he's the key to the backfield was a little surprising. So this is what he said. This was his exact quote. He said, "We're going to figure out a way to keep him healthy and keep him on the field. But when he's on the field, he's definitely going to make plays for us." And then he went on to talk about Joshua Kelley, and let me know, Cody, what you think about this. He said, "Then there's the 4th round pick, Joshua Kelley. As a rookie, Kelley will have to be both a core special teamer and possibly a contributor in the backfield."
Sounds like an old school dude doing old school things.
Well, I mean, but to be fair though, when in that situation, I mean, Justin Jackson's still really young too. I think he's 23. Like, it's not like Justin Jackson is old and he's been in the league for a really long time. It's only his 3rd season in the league. I know they.
No, that's definitely the rookie.
Oh yeah,
treatment.
but
all right. Special teams, and you bring us the water every day.
Yeah,
for
but my point is, though, by saying that he's going to be a special teams guy does not make me feel great that he's even going to have even a role in this offense. Like, yeah, certainly if something happens, if Justin Jackson were to go down, Justin Jackson has gotten hurt. If something were to happen to him, or if possibly something happens to Austin Eckler, then maybe he would have a role. But right now, I mean, he doesn't sound like he shouldn't even be considered by fantasy gamers, to be honest with you. Like, Justin Jackson. Like, those are some pretty strong words from Anthony Lynn to talk about Justin Jackson. So I like Justin Jackson. He is going, like I said, 16th round, which again, for most people, that's undrafted. I love Justin Jackson. I'm gonna be hammering him late in every single draft. Like, I think he's somebody that has that standalone value. I think he can be a weekly flex option in this offense, and somebody that I think is explosive. And I think he's actually a really good running back. If you go back and look at his days in Northwestern, I mean, he had 1,000 yards every single season and I think he had double-digit touchdowns in 3 of the 4 years there at Northwestern. So there's a lot to like on the Justin Jackson profile. And I think people, as soon as they drafted Joshua Kelley, that everybody just sort of kind of pushed Justin Jackson aside and forgot about Justin Jackson being there. So I like I like Justin Jackson a lot. He's one of my favorite late round sleepers.
Yeah, I like those calls. Someone that you mentioned at the beginning of it and said you didn't want to take the easy way out with Chase Edmonds. I think that's someone, reading into the quotes and how you were talking about with Anthony Lynn and the Chargers. Chase Edmonds is somebody who I think could have a role outside of just being a handcuff as well. I mean, you want to talk about some strong quotes in the other direction. Cliff Kingsbury was asked about Chase Edmonds, and he said he thinks that he is a legit starting running back in the NFL, could be a team's RB1. And went as far as to say they may not even have traded for Kenyon Drake had Chase Edmonds not gotten hurt. So how involved he is
But then with that too, you have to remember though as well is that Kenyon Drake he's not on a long-term deal. This is a 1-year deal. They signed a transition tag for him. So I'll say this: I like Kenyon Drake quite a bit heading into this year, but there is that hesitancy with this that if anything starts off awry and he struggles at any way, that Chase Edmonds could easily be inserted into this offense as the lead back. Do I expect that to happen? No, but I also know this is an offense that wants to run a ton of plays, which means there's going to be opportunity there for Chase Edmonds as well. And I do think Chase Edmonds is more than just strictly a handcuff that's going to have no role in this offense. So I do think definitely, like I said, if you can get your hand on Chase Edmonds, those are the guys that I'm shooting for.
For sure. The guys that I'm going to bring to the table, one of them I've touched on a little bit throughout the offseason, so I'll hit on him quick, and that is Matt Breida. And the other two are surprise myself. And if you've been following along with the TFA podcast throughout the offseason, might surprise you as well. But Zach Moss is going to be one of them, and Damian Harris will round out my three. But back to Matt Breida real quick. RB38 right now, coming off of boards at 905. To lay this out for him, it's simple. That is going to be a team that is not going to be playing with a lead very often, and the running back ahead of him, Jordan Howard, is not anywhere near as dynamic as Matt Breida is. I think sometimes because of Breida has been fairly injured. Last year did not go well for him. 2018 was a much better year in terms of his performance and injury, obviously. But coming out of college, you're looking at someone who ran a 4.44, 92nd percentile. He was a 89th percentile spark athlete, and that is just something that Jordan Howard is not. If you go back to 2018, like I said, when Matt Breida was healthier, for relative to Matt Breida's standards, he was 7th in yards per touch, and he finishes RB22. Last year, Miami had 20% of their target share go to the running back position, and that was with guys like Patrick Laird and Kalen Ballage leading the way. I think Matt Breida is much more capable than any of those guys. Like I said, with playing from behind, with that depth chart being thin outside of the receiver and tight end position, I think Matt Breida is going to have to be more heavily involved than maybe we might have expected. Like I said, going to RB38, I could easily see a fringe RB2, RB3 finish for him this year in Miami. Moving on to Zach Moss, RB45 at 1105. And now, granted, we did kind of try to throw the cold water on Zach Moss a little bit here, and tried to talk about him as if we wanted nothing to do with him, but that was never really the case. But we were trying to bring that hype down from how some people were talking about him as like RB1 in this draft class, which is just absolutely absurd. But Zach Moss seems to really be impressing people out in Buffalo. One of their beat writers came out and said that, it's looking like he might have a much bigger impact and a much bigger role on this team than what was previously thought. Kev, we kind of thought that he was just going to slide into the Frank Gore role. He was going to have, 160 carries, maybe be a goal line back, and that was going to kind of be it. But early indications, I think he's going to push for more than that. And I think if up until today, Devin Singletary had kind of been slipping and Zach Moss was outplaying him, and we're recording this on Sunday just for your information. Up until today on Sunday, Zach Moss had been outplaying Devin Singletary. There were a couple fumbles that Singletary had, and he was kind of just shelved there for a little bit. But today, Singletary had his best practice. But I think if he starts to slip, that Zach Moss has done more than enough in terms of what they've seen from him early on in camp, that this could easily just flip, and this could be Zach Moss being the one here to and putting Devin Singletary in the 2 spot, and instead of having it be that 1A, kind of 1B scenario that we thought it might be at the beginning of the year. And just another note, Zach Moss had also been showing well as a receiver. So that's definitely something to monitor. Like I said, at RB 45 at 1105, if things go right, you could be looking at maybe like a back end RB 2. You know, if things go right for Moss, and if things go, you know, the opposite direction for Singletary, Moss takes that backfield over kind of by himself. So he's definitely one to watch out for. And another training camp darling that I guess I can't get myself away from is Damian Harris, the second-year running back with the New England Patriots, going RB 56 at 16-12. So another 16th round guy who basically for redraft purposes right now is kind of going undrafted. But with Sony Michel still not practicing because he had the offseason surgery, they brought in Lamar Miller, but he's still not practicing. Damian Harris has been getting a large workload out there in New England. He's been showing well across all phases, as a runner, as a pass catcher, and pass protection. Obviously, all those things are going to be super important, especially for a Bill Belichick running back. And this is obviously last year with Sony Michel. He got all of the opportunity that he could have asked for, didn't do much with it. Whenever Sony Michel was on the field, they weren't getting him involved as a pass catcher either, so they were kind of – we thought that they were drafting Sony Michel so that they wouldn't tip their hat whenever they had whoever they were putting in at running back. But that's exactly what they ended up doing with Sony Michel, because he wasn't getting targeted either. So if Damian Harris is showing well as a pass catcher like they noted, obviously James White's still going to be involved. Rex Burkhead is still being involved as well. I think today I read a report where Cam Newton had 28 pass completions. I think it was maybe 7 or 8 went to Julian Edelman. Rex Burkhead was actually next in catches, and I think he had 6 of Cam Newton's 28 completions. So it's still going to be a mess in New England, but if Damian Harris can at least be that early down back and push Sony Michel out of it, he could easily have. I mean, you're looking at a running back who's being taken in the 16th round, someone you can get with 200 plus carries in the 16th round, which is absolutely crazy. That is massive value, especially in 2020, where 86 running backs are going off in the first 4 rounds. It seems so. Those are guys that we're looking at. We try to bring you some guys that we hadn't really talked about. We've definitely been talking about some of these guys already. We tried going a little bit deeper for you as well. We tried going past, the Akers and the Swifts and guys like that. I know someone who's moving up for both of us right now, Ronald Jones. He's been getting all the buzz out in camp. He's going at RB 30 right now. Kev, are there any of these other running back sleepers or guys that are going a little bit deeper in drafts that you want to take a swing on outside of some of the guys you mentioned already?
No, you already mentioned, Damian Harris and Zach Moss. Zach Moss, certainly, if you would have asked me in April if I'd be excited about Zach Moss in August, I probably would have said no, but here we are, and I think it's one of the most crucial things. Well, but I also think that it's super important to be fluid as a fantasy analyst. Most of them aren't. Most fantasy analysts get caught in their take lock and never want to remove off of that. And I think if you ever are listening to anybody and they are continually just stuck on that take, and even though all the facts are pointing in the opposite direction of that, then those are fantasy you don't want to listen to because they're leading in the wrong direction. You have to remove your bias. You cannot get stuck in take lock. And Zach Moss and Ronald Jones are probably the 2 poster boys of that. I was not super high on Zach Moss, and here we are. And Zach Moss, continually is getting positive reports, and sounds like he's at least going to be the goal line back, at the very least, the early down and goal line back. But he's also probably a better pass catcher than Devin Singletary is, because he's somebody that could end up get a 3-down workload, and you're getting him in the 11th round. Hammer that all day. I'm sorry, but you have to. And then Ronald Jones. It's still tough because I still don't think Ronald Jones is actually good at football. I do not. That hasn't changed. But you have to become fluid, and he seems like he is going to be the guy in this offense, at least early on. That's the case. And LaShawn McCoy is dead. Like he's dust and shouldn't even be in the NFL anymore, but he is, and he's the number 2 back. And there's nothing positive about Keyshawn Vaughn. We've literally, they talked about it the other day about a beat reporter asked about Keyshawn Vaughn, and Bruce Arians was like, well, special teams, we need a special teams guy, kick returner. And I'm like,
not great, Bob.
Yeah, that's not good. And Ronald Jones, though, I will say that Ronald Jones had a bad day today. He did drop 4 passes in practice today, which is obviously not good news for him. But regardless of that, I still think that you have to, if you can get Ronald Jones in the 6th, 7th round, I would be happy with that. If he goes any further than that, my opinion hasn't changed. I would be out on Ronald Jones at that point. I still would want Cam Akers and DeAndre Swift well ahead. I'd want Ronald Jones. Like, I think both those guys are in much better situations, and I think clearer path to touches, and I think just better running backs, quite frankly. But that's all I really wanted to say. Is I just think people need to learn to be more fluid, whether you're a fantasy analyst or you're a fantasy gamer. If there's somebody that 2 months ago that you really didn't like, you really didn't understand, but here we are, like you have to remove that take lock, and you have to be fluid in your takes. Take your late round sleepers, take your guys like Tony Pollard, Alexander Madison, Chase Edmonds, and then go upside. Do not draft fucking Adrian Peterson and some of these other dust wide receivers like Golden Tate and Larry fucking Fitzgerald and all these guys. Like, it is the terrible, but that is the go-to for a lot of fantasy gamers whenever they haven't done the research and they've come in late to the party, and then so they're drafting, and then they're drafting these names that they know whenever you should be drafting for upside. Swing for that motherfucking fence every time once you get past the 10th round, even the 9th round. You should be out there, looking to hit that bomb. That you're up that 3-0 count. You're like Fernando Tatis. 3-0 count. You're up at 8 runs. You don't even care. You're swinging for the fences to hit that grand slam and piss the other team off. Like, hammer those high upside guys. And that's all I have to say about that, Jack.
Especially this year with who knows what is going to happen. You should be swinging for that upside in the late rounds anyway, but especially this year when we have no idea what's going to happen. You don't know who's going to be missing time. You don't know, frankly, if we're going to have a 16-game season the way that we normally have a 16-game season. So swing for that upside. Make sure you like, subscribe, rate, review, do all that for us. We really appreciate all you guys and all the feedback we've been getting. Drop your favorite running back sleepers for the 2020 season below, and we will be hitting you guys with more content soon. See ya!